To cover the rest of the drawing preferences, we're going to need to turn on a separate setting called Snap to Objects, and it's under the View menu. Let's do that now. Choose View, Snapping, and Snap to Objects. Make sure there's a check mark next to it here. Snapping is a kind of helper that has long been a part of Flash. It assists us in aligning objects in drawing. It actually does much more in Flash 8, but we're going to cover snapping in detail a bit later on. For now, just think of it as something that enables the drawing preferences. Now, just before we return to the Preferences dialog, let's also have a quick look in the toolbox. Select the Pencil tool, and look down here at the bottom right. We have a Drawing Mode selector. We can select Straighten, Smooth, and Ink. Remember these. They work in conjunction with a few of the drawing preferences, and we'll be returning to these in a few minutes. For now, though, back to Preferences. And let's have a look at the first one. It's Connect. Notice that it's commonplace. To demonstrate this, I'm going to use the Line tool here. The operation of the Line tool is very simple. Just click, drag, and release, and we have a line. Now, where this preference comes into play is when we are drawing a second line. So I'll click and drag to draw my second line, and I'll bring the end of it close to the first line. Now, as you can see, as soon as I get anywhere near the first line, the end of the second line snaps to it. Likewise, if I get anywhere near horizontal, it snaps as well, and the same thing with vertical. So that can be distance setting allows us to snap from a great distance. If we return to the preferences and change this to Must Be Close, we now have to get a lot closer. Okay, I'll get rid of these lines. Back to the preferences. And the next three preferences all deal with the Pencil tool. This is why we selected it earlier and had a look down at our drawing options. The first one is Smooth Curves. We have four choices here: Off, Rough, Normal, and Smooth. Now this will tell Flash to help us out when it thinks we're drawing a curve, to try and smooth it as much as possible. So we'll set this to Smooth, hit OK, grab the Pencil tool, and try to draw a curve. This is why I mentioned our drawing options here. We have to also set our drawing options to Smooth, draw a curve, and Flash automatically smooths it out. Even though I'm drawing with a mouse and I'm not actually very good at drawing smooth curves, Flash helps us out. Okay, get rid of those. Back to Preferences. And next we have Recognize Lines. In a way, this is the opposite of smooth curves. Instead of trying to smooth a curved shape, using Recognize Lines, we'll try to turn a line we draw into a perfectly straight line. And for this, it helps us to choose Straighten. I'll click and drag. And as you can see, that is not perfectly horizontal, but Flash tries to make it horizontal. Let's try the third option, Ink. As you can see, it's a little bit different. And Smooth. You should be getting a picture here that these drawing preferences work in conjunction with our drawing options here. And with this many possibilities, it's really going to have to be a case of you experimenting with each one to get a good feel for it. Back to Preferences. And we have Recognize Shapes. Let's go Tolerant. choose Straighten here, and try to draw a square. And of course, again, I'm using a mouse, and I'm not going to be able to draw a perfect square. But when I release, Flash has recognized the fact that our shape looks almost like a square, and it's helped us out. We'll try an oval. Another oval, and so on. And finally, back to preferences. This last one is click accuracy. Strict, normal, and tolerant. This determines how close you have to be to an object with a tool such as the selection tool for that object to be selected. Now watch the bottom right of my cursor. When it moves near this rectangle shape, you can see it change. As soon as it changes, that means if I click, I'm going to select part of that object. And you can see that I'm quite a large distance away from the rectangle when it changes. Let's go back, change this to strict, and I have to get a lot closer. Now, one application of this could be, say, if you're working on a document where you have a lot of spread out shapes like this, and they might be very small, setting tolerant could be a good idea. That way they're easier to select. But if it's a complicated document and there's a lot of shapes very close to each other, you might need to change it to strict so that you can accurately select each shape you want. And that's it for the drawing preferences.